Hi, I'm Judy Kerr, and I'm an acting coach in Los Angeles. The reason that I do this is to bring information to actors where they may have not heard about it before. Introducing Scott Sedita, who is one of the best-known acting coaches in Los Angeles, and he started out in the film and television program, and he graduated from Boston University, and then was an agent in New York, and then was a casting director here in Los Angeles, and then thankfully opened his acting studio, Scott Sedita Acting Studios. And he's been on many reality shows, the featured acting coach, and we'll talk about that. But the thing that I love the best is the 8 characters of comedy. And if you've ever wanted to act or in sitcom or write sitcom, he has defined what the 8 characters of comedy are. And one of my jobs in my life is working as an on-set dialogue coach and helping actors on sitcoms run their lines. And of course, my most famous job was working on Seinfeld. Yeah, I just mentioned that. So this is Scott Sedita. I'm so glad that you're here! So tell me a bit about the reality shows and why are you the acting coach?
I don't know how it happened, but I did a show called Fight for Fame, and from there I ended up, and that was a pretty successful show, and it was a wonderful education for me to actually be working on that show and coming up with different, basically, lessons each week, and doing it in a very short period of time. In regular, the process is every week an actor comes in and there's a process going on there. There was 45 minutes, brand new actors, go. But it was fun, and I really liked it, and I've done Faking It. I'm doing something called Character Fantasy on the USA Network. I'm doing a show on MTV, 6 Mafia's new show, Adventures in Hollywood. And so I'm pretty busy doing that.
Yeah.
It's kind of exciting for me. I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
And why did you, what made you define these 8 characters? Because they're so well defined, and I want to, my goal is to talk about each one. So the audience.
Well, one of the reasons I wrote the book is because in my class, as much as I work with dramatic actors, at the end of class I would do what would be called a quick bit, and that would be a comedic, something comedic, and it always was funny, and it was always fun to do. And I grew up watching sitcoms, and I love comedies, whether it's a sitcom or a dramedy. I just love comedic actors in film as well. And I just felt like actors, there wasn't anything in town or anybody in town who was concentrating on comedy, because that type of work, comedic work, is a totally different craft than regular acting. You know, I kind of believe that in acting, it has to be an innate thing. I call it the acting gene. You have to have that innate ability to act. No one can teach anyone to act if they don't have an innate ability to pretend to act. And to the left of the act gene is the funny gene. And that's the same kind of idea. If you don't have a sense of humor about yourself or a sense of humor about life, then it'll be pretty difficult to be funny. Now, even though that funny gene might be small, given the actor techniques and throwing in the 8 characters, I have been able to access their funny gene. I felt like when I started to work with actors comedically that they naturally became funnier on specific types of characters. Let's say if I gave an actor a Chandler Bing role on Friends, if I gave him, this is from Friends and this is Chandler Bing, it was interesting to see how some actors gravitated towards it and really encompassed the actor in the character, where others didn't, maybe because they tended to be a little too smart or cynical or whatever. And I found that each actor has some natural tendency to go towards a specific type of character.
Well, what is Chandler Bing?
Well, Chandler Bing would be called the lovable loser. And there's a vulnerability to that character. There's a hopeful, desperate, optimistic type of guy who wants something specifically and has a self-deprecating sense of humor, but they have their heart on their sleeve. And a lot of there are people who have that, who wear their hearts on their sleeves. And then there are people who are very different from that, are a little more cynical and pessimistic.
Well, how about Friends? Each of those characters, what are they? Who are
well,
they?
okay.
Joey.
Joey is the dumb one. And that is a genuine, sweet, honest, sincere. You know, it's the funny thing about it is that most actors want to approach playing the dumb one, playing dumb, but you can't play dumb. I used to represent Matt LeBlanc way back when I was an agent, and let me tell you, there's nothing dumb about Matt LeBlanc. But he is an open, sincere, genuine, sweet guy. And if I give you those characteristics, open, sweet, sincere, positive, enthusiastic, what type of person comes up in your mind?
A really likable.
A child.
Oh, a child.
Yes, sweet, honest, genuune, positive, enthusiastic. Yes. It's a child, so it's really the dumb one is a 7. Yes, an innocence.
And that can be man or woman.
Absolutely,
all of these
absolutely. Well, one of my favorite dumb ones on the Golden Girls was Rose. I mean, she was just really terrific. Then there's Woody on Cheers. Joey on Blossom. Remember Joey on Blossom? Oh, yeah. So that's a very popular character. The brother on My Name is Earl is also a dumb character. Oh, yeah. That's also considered the naive one, the innocent one. Monica would be the neurotic, someone who thinks too much, talks too much, you know, obsesses about certain things. Also, her brother Ross is a neurotic as well. Little scientific, very book smart type of people. So it makes kind of sense that those two people that were brothers and sisters have that neurotic tendency. Jennifer Aniston's character of Rachel Green would be the materialistic one, and which is someone who has a great sense of entitlement, someone who loves shopping. I mean, that's what she ended up being in for her career. She became a buyer at Saks, I believe. And Phoebe, it would be the one in your own universe. And in your own universe is different from Joey's dumb one. In your own universe is smart. They just see life differently. They have a skewed vision. They use what I call illogical logic. That's kind of, in your own universe is Kramer as well, and also Jack and Karen. You know you're in the company of someone in your own universe is when you say something to this person, and they hear you, they hear you, they hear you, and then what comes out of their mouth has absolutely nothing to do with what you just said. There's one thing that Friends doesn't have, except it does is the bitch bastard character.
And who is that?
That would, well, Gunther on that show, but the bitch bastard character is kind of an interesting characterization. Let me see if you can guess what type of people usually play the bitch bastard. If I mention Florence from the Jeffersons, Rosario from Will and Grace, Berta from 2.5 Men, the butler from Fresh Prince, the butler from The Nanny, Mr. Belvedere, Benson, what type of people are those? They usually end up being the staffers, the people who are David Spade from Just Shoot Me. They usually, the assistants, the staffers, the servants. For some reason, the bitch bastard characters inherently have some sort of cynicism and pessimism about themselves. I always say my favorite little bitch was Darlene from Roseanne. At 12 years old,
she was so
she was
good,
terrific,
yes.
But at 12 years old, she got the cynicism and pessimism of that character. You know, I kind of believe in a way that we inherit stuff through genes, and I think that she, you know, a lot of things we inherit from. So the bitch bastard character holds so much repression and persecution in their ancestral pain, you know, that I think a lot of we come into this world, that particular character, and they're a little cynical and they're a little pessimistic, and the thing is that they can really read someone who's pretentious. They don't suffer fools well, and they'll tell it like it is. And that's why that character is actually so funny, because they're so sarcastic and so biting, and they can be a little mean-spirited.
Now, what was Roseanne?
Roseanne was not a bitch. Roseanne was the logical, smart one. Yes, she had a strong sense of sarcasm, but she was a maternal. The illogical, smart ones, funny enough, like Roseanne, well, they're usually the wives. Patricia Heaton on Raymond, Patricia Richardson, all those wives, the wonderful chubby husbands on television, usually end up being the logical, smart ones. They are obviously logical and smart, but they're grounded, responsible, patient. Their biggest thing is that they don't necessarily have a wacky sense of humor. What they do have, and what they do have is the art of sarcasm. They're really terrific at sarcasm. I mean, Patricia Heaton would fold her arms. She goes, "Right, Ray. Maybe next time you would try." I mean, that was what her whole thing is. Actually, Ricky Ricardo was the logical smart one against Lucy's lovable loser, and Will on Will and Grace was the logical smart one, which is usually the voice of reason on the show. And Will was a terrific logical smart one. Now, once in a while,
Grace. What was Grace?
Grace was the neurotic.
Oh.
But once in a while, the characters, to add depth and more conflict, can morph into other characters. Will was primarily the voice of reason, the logical smart one on Will and Grace. But to add more comedy, to add more depth of the comedy, he would turn into the neurotic. He'd become a fuss budget, and he'd be started to take traits of the neurotic. But mostly on that show, he was the one who was the center of what's right and what's wrong and what makes sense. Jerry Seinfeld was actually the logical smart one on that show. And in a way, he kind of looked at all his supporting cast and said, aren't these people wacky? So a lot of his sarcastic sense of humor came out there. He was the he was the grounded one, the one who could kind of see reason in everything. But then again, Jerry had a tendency to also tiptoe over to the other character of the neurotic, and then he became the fuss budget. He became the person who was a little, things not in its place.
Now, let's say a person is going in to audition, trying to get a role. How much do they adhere to the character that they've decided to use?
Well, the thing is that when you read the book, there's two things in the book. You learn comedic technique, number one, and then you read through the 8 characters. And as you read through the chapters of the book, you're given characteristics of each of those characters. You're given a history of those characters, of what those characters would be like.
And I do want to mention the book is readily available in the library, and also many of the university libraries, which I know really is serving those students well.
Absolutely. You would find the character that best suits you, the 1 or 2 characters that best suit you, and you would probably insert that character into the role if the circumstances of that role would play. But if the character is a Joey-esque type of character, which is the dumb one, and you know that you're really a good bastard or bitch, then that probably role is not right for you. The best thing that you can do if you're not someone who has that genuine, sweet, optimistic sort of personality that the dumb one asks you, you can insert the lovable loser into that category as well. And so it's kind of the dumb one with a little more smarts to it. The dumb one is oblivious to things around them. The lovable loser is consciously oblivious. He knows that the things that he's about to do. Lucy knew that, oh my gosh, Lucy knew the things that she was doing was crazy in order to get her to be a star, but she kind of put blinders on so she can go towards that. And that's the difference between the dumb one and the lovable loser.
I see. She would roll over Ricky.
Yeah, she would do that, but she knew that what she was doing was a little crazy to get what she wanted. But because she had an agenda, where the dumb one doesn't have an agenda. The dumb one is just happy to be there.
Well, now there's certain sitcom rules. For people in the audience who are reading sitcom scripts and trying to learn
the first thing is that the writer has made, is basically structured the script a certain way to bring out the music in it. Sitcom writing has a certain music. Comedy has a music to it. Just like any song that you would sing. If you were to sing Happy Birthday, yeah, you could extend the birthday and the happy, but you wouldn't be able to add words to it. Otherwise, it would change the rhythm of that song. And that's the same thing with comedy acting. A lot of dramatic actors, I work with a lot of dramatic actors who I am introducing to more comedic acting, and they're really, I work with Emmy Award-winning dramatic actors sometimes, and they're terrific actors. As I said, comedy acting is a completely different type of craft that you're learning. So one of the things I say to them is, don't change a word. Don't add a word and don't drop a word, because you're changing the rhythm when you change a word. When you add words, you're changing the rhythm. Also,